This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
They did it, Facci. The Pacers did it. The Pacers get a victory. And not just any victory. They get an overtime thriller victory over the Boston Celtics, defeat them 135-132. And this was a game that the Pacers pretty much were in control of the whole time. But the Celtics do what the Celtics do, and they just completely put the clamps on in the fourth quarter. But the Pacers and Pascal Siakam with the big dagger three lift Indiana in overtime. So Facci, I tell you, just last Monday, I was admitted to the hospital for AFib, and that basically is where your heart just does not beat in a normal rhythm, and it feels like you're having an anxiety attack or something. I felt like that tonight a little bit. I checked to make sure I'm okay, obviously, but I definitely felt like that watching the Pacers just completely melt away in the fourth quarter, let Boston tie this thing up, and my, oh my, what a thriller of a game, but thank God the Pacers came out with the dub.
An absolute roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I felt the Pacers were in control for the majority of this game. They were up, as much as 24 at one point. I'm not gonna lie, I started running my mouth. I started texting, Knicks fans and other people around saying, like, look, turn on ESPN right now. Look what we're doing to the Celtics. I try and wait as long as I can, but usually you and I like to discuss, what's gonna be the flow of the episode. I said, Alex, I can't wait anymore. This is what we've been waiting for. And then all of a sudden there's a huge meltdown. And then I even got to the point where I started looking at the screen. I said, I'm turning 33 years old. I can't do this anymore. I can't care this much about this team. And then in the end, when they got it done, I said to myself, man, I love this team. I love other sports, but there is nothing quite like Pacers basketball.
No, there isn't. And I'll just say this, like, I've gotten to the point where wins and losses don't really affect me as much, but for the sake of the podcast, I was like, we need a win. This Pacers fan base, a lot of them are Colts fans. It's been just absolutely chaos with the Colts and the Anthony Richardson decision and everybody freaking out about that. So you know what? The Pacers needed a victory. And what better way to get yourself feeling right than defeating the champs on your home court in an overtime thriller? I mean, it honestly, everything you want, it happened for the Pacers tonight, aside from obviously going to overtime and blowing that fourth quarter lead. But you got to give the Celtics credit. They played really good basketball in the fourth, and we know how deadly they can be. But let's talk about two guys that really just lifted this Pacers team from start to finish. Pascal Siakam, Bennedict Mathurin, your players of the game. Mathurin drops 30 points off the bench, and after halftime, gets inserted into the starting lineup with the starting five for Nembhard, and he ends up dropping close. I think he had 30 points overall in the game, but I think he had like 28.
14 in the third.
14 in the third. Okay, and he had 9.5, so
Yep.
put him at 23. So, I mean, he was cooking in the third quarter, and you felt it, and it was like everybody that's been chirping at us and in our mentions and in our comments, they're like, this is what we've been telling you. This is what we've been telling you. So, I'll eat crow. All love. I think we all got the result we wanted, and that's all that matters to me.
No, absolutely. I mean, for you guys watching on YouTube, I'm rocking the Mathurin jersey right now. Funny story, I told Alex, I almost felt like a clown. I put the jersey on right before, it's like Mathurin's cooking, my wife's going to sleep. So I'm like, all right, hey, I'm going to go podcast. And then I watched this lead disappear, and here I am, like, I can't even take this off anymore. If they lose, I don't want to wake her. But no, you got to give Mathurin those props. He was absolutely cooking in that third quarter. He just, and honestly, not just from a scoring perspective. We have heard before he's got to have a better effort on the rebounds. Like, he was flying around there. He picked up 11 rebounds tonight, three of them on the offensive glass. I just really felt like the effort was absolutely there. He battled defensively. He gave Indiana everything he could possibly give them, and I just feel like he deserves the credit. Mathurin, and this people were talking about the minutes. 43 minutes tonight for Bennedict Mathurin, and we did not see Andrew Nembhard after the 5-minute mark in the first quarter. How about that?
I wonder if Evan Sidery is going to put out another tweet that says Mathurin's at a career low in minutes. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
They asked for a trade. We heard that. Oh, I mean, think about the overreaction about that. After the last two games, Mathurin should ask for a trade. Now you look at this. Okay, I think the guy's pretty happy right now. He balled out, and honestly, while Nembhard wasn't playing, he didn't look like he was fussing either. I thought that he was, seemed to be in good spirits. I don't know what exactly happened there, and I don't know if you've seen anything, people have discussed anything, but to get pulled for the full game, I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's a weird development, and I don't want to like get down into that just yet because I want to keep talking about Mathurin, right? I want to save that for a little bit later, and I'll see if we get some live updates from the guys that are there covering the game live tonight. Dustin Dopirak, Tony East, those guys. So I'll be on the lookout for that. But let's just be honest here with Mathurin, right? One of the things that we both have said is like Rick Carlisle will reward Mathurin if he's playing well. And he just looked totally engaged. And I think there's been a lot of scrutiny, right? Rick Carlisle openly talked about this on the morning show with Kevin Bowen on Tuesday. I had KB on yesterday on the podcast this morning when you maybe listened to it, but just had him on to kind of talk about everything. And I felt like it was a pretty healthy conversation. I know that I had some very hot takes after the loss to the Magic and just people in my mentions and just kind of, grinding my gears about Mathurin should play over Nembhard and Neesmith, and almost like those guys don't exist. But, I'll just say this, Mathurin, when he's at his best, is a very special talent, right? And we both have said the ceiling for Mathurin is higher than anybody else on this roster, probably aside from Tyrese, right? And I'm sure some people probably feel like the ceiling could be higher than Tyrese if Mathurin could ever hit that. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We're not trying to compare the two.
Whole other episode.
Yes. I just want to say this. Like, when Mathurin plays like this, he looks great, and Rick Carlisle rewards him. So whether it was Carlisle just realizing in the moment, like, this is a great matchup for us, like, Boston has a lot of wings, and you need a lot of players like Mathurin to go out there and compete with that. You put Mathurin, Neesmith, and Siakam out there, you can switch pretty much 2, 3, and 4 on everything with who they have out there. And then you try to hide Haliburton on one of the point guards, and then you had Isaiah Jackson, who got the start tonight because Myles Turner was out with an injury, being able to switch as well because he's a very mobile big. I just felt like this was a much more mobile team, bigger, stronger team so that they had out there. And I just love the way that he played. I mean, his relentlessness to get to the basket was great, but it wasn't just that. You talk about it, the 11 rebounds, the 4 assists. He was playing a well-rounded game. And if he can do this consistently, for the rest of the season, like, watch out. You're talking about one of the most improved player of the year award potential candidates here, right? So
Man, too.
can't have anything but exciting things to say about Mathurin after this game.
No, you can't. And look, the 11 free throws, Pacers only shot 24. It means he basically accounted for half of the Pacers' free throw attempts. He makes 10 out of 11. I can't remember who tweeted at me, but someone was like, that he's attempting. He's not baiting people into a foul. This is not like some James Harden stuff where you're just doing a series of pump fakes, just hoping somebody bites. He is attacking the rim in a way that really no one else is really doing like that in terms of the Pacers. And I think that it was awesome to see him be able to get to the free throw line, be able to see him hit shots. The jumpers look good. He had 4 assists in this game. The 4 assists ranked third on the Pacers behind Haliburton, and Siakam beat him out by 1 assist. I just felt like anyone who thinks that maybe could Mathurin have been on a minute restriction? No. 43 minutes tonight. I mean, Carlisle is going to roll with who has that hot hand, and at times the leash has definitely been way too tight. It really has.
Mm-hmm.
But tonight just shows that it's like, hey, look, like, if Indiana wants to be at their best offensively from a scoring standpoint, Mathurin is someone that can really take this offense to the next level when he's nowhere close to entering his prime, but when he's playing at his best, the Pacers' ceiling on this team, it just raises that much more.
Absolutely. I do want to give you guys an update here because I just saw this on Twitter from Tony East. Rick Carlisle said Andrew Nembhard's knee is acting up. There is some tendonitis. Carlisle found out like 40 seconds before the game. Nembhard told Carlisle he wanted to play, but that was why he only played 5 minutes tonight. So I text Jeremiah Johnson during the game. I was like, hey, what's going on with Nembhard? He's like, we're being told it's not an injury. And that's what the broadcast was saying. Pat Boylan said the same thing on the radio call. So it seems like they were trying to keep that injury in-house and not make it a big talking point on the broadcast. So I think that the injury probably did, factor into Carlisle's hand being pushed a little bit here and having to play Mathurin more. But it worked out in his favor, right? Because Mathurin played terrific in this game. And I thought Ben Shepherd had some good moments. I thought Jarris Walker had some good moments. But
he really did.
Overall, you have to be incredibly happy for Mathurin, but also realize that it wasn't a coaching decision to not insert Nembhard back into the game. Only played 5 minutes because of an injury. So at least we have some clarification there. But It didn't matter. You didn't need Nembhard tonight because Mathurin stepped up and took his game to another level, and probably a level we would not have seen Nembhard take his game to.
No, I just look. I love Nembhard. So do you. Nembhard is not doing this. He's a different type of player.
He's different,
And
but
look,
let's not act like he didn't do some great stuff in the Eastern
no,
Conference Finals when the
no,
stakes were incredibly
that
high.
is a very valid point. But I also feel like he had the ball in his hand much more, with no Tyrese, and it would have been a different type of role.
He's a better point guard than he is a shooting guard. Can I
Yes,
just
yeah.
honestly say that?
Oh, 100%. No, that's definitely true. But the injury makes sense because when I was going back and looking at like the play-by-play, I'm like, what could Nembhard have done to just like not get back in the game? When he gets taken out, it was 12-11. Just before that, he had an assist to Pascal Siakam, like just before that. So I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, but that makes a lot more sense. I really do hope that Nembhard's all right. And given the situation right now, it's like, hey, maybe this does create an opportunity for Mathurin. I don't think this is going to be one of those where he steps in the starting lineup and then just never gives that job back. I think that would be looking too far into it. But I think right now, if that's a knee issue, and there's 77 more games to play in the NBA, maybe you want to take that a little bit easier. So let's not rush him back.
Thank goodness their deepest position is the point guard position, right? You can slide Mathurin into the starting lineup. You can play Shepard off the bench with the unit there. I mean, they have a lot of different options they can go with, but big stat here, Facci. I know you're a big stat guy.
I
So
love a big stat.
Mathurin's 30-point game off the bench is the first pacer with a 30-10 game off the bench in over 20 seasons. So 30 points
Wow.
and 11 rebounds. It's the first pacer with a 30-10 game off the bench in over 20 seasons. So we've seen guys score, but to get the rebounds as well, I mean, not been done in 20 seasons. That's the kind of special player Mathurin can be. Now, I do want to transition to the guy that really put the Pacers on his back early on and was helping expand this lead. That's Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam was absolutely phenomenal in this game. Thought the Pacers got away from him a little bit too much in the second half, right? But thankfully, they refound him again in overtime. Carlisle does a great job, calls that timeout with the game tied, and gets the ball. Was the game tied or were the Pacers? I think the Pacers were actually down 2 at this point. And gets the ball to Siakam in the low post. Siakam hits that turnaround fadeaway, tie the game, and then Siakam hits that 3 on the pick and pop with Tyrese. So
That was a moment.
just a great pass, probably one of the best Pascal Siakam moments as a Pacer that I can remember.
No, absolutely. And like, yeah, I think we all kind of feel like, hey, usually Halliburton's the guy taking that shot. And Halliburton did hit a big shot. I think it was at the end of the fourth quarter, towards the end. But Siakam hitting the biggest of all, I think that was just awesome to see. You talk about early on, he led the Pacers in scoring with 9 points the first quarter, led them with 17 at halftime. He had 13 shots by halftime. After that, I felt like you didn't really see enough of him. It only takes 3 shots in the third quarter, and I think in the fourth quarter, to be honest, I believe he might have only had maybe it was 1 or 2 shots, and one of them came really late. So I just felt like they totally just kind of disappeared from Siakam, and that's kind of been a recurring theme at times. And that midi that he's got, I mean, it's just it's something that very few guys possess in this league. And I just feel like the Pacers need to be a little bit more consistent going to Siakam. And I feel like he showed up in the biggest moment. That's what you want from a guy that is a leader on this team, a guy that you did, pony up some draft picks for, make a big trade for. He showed his value tonight that you don't have to rely on Tyrese Haliburton for every big shot. There's other good guys, but we saw Obi Toppin had a big opportunity to hit a 3 in the corner at one point. He missed that. Siakam, when it mattered most, had our back.
He really did. And I mean, you got to give him a lot of praise. Special player. This is why you pay the guy the big bucks. Defensively, I think he's gotten better this season. Looks better defensively. I know that he had a tough matchup tonight defending Jaylen Brown, right? Like Jaylen Brown did not have a good scoring game. So, and he missed 2 big free throws in overtime as well. So thank you, Jaylen Brown, for
I was stunned.
doing that. What was that?
No, I was stunned. I was shocked that he missed those free throws. I mean, the last couple games, I mean, the Pacers have kind of like been able to stay in some of these games due to missed free throws, whether it was the Sixers game and this game and even the Magic. I mean, it's like that meant a lot seeing Jaylen Brown miss those free throws because I was really at my end where it's like if the Pacers lose this game, like I don't know how I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I would have been enraged, to be honest. And I know you said wins and losses aren't affecting you as much. I need to get to that point. Jaylen Brown, thank you for keeping us alive in this game.
I will say this, when you're not around the team as much, it's easier to be more of a fan. When you're around the team in a professional standpoint, in terms of like a media member, you do have to kind of build that wall, right, a little bit. So I'm still a fan at heart. I'm not gonna lie. I still want the team to win. I still enjoy it, right? Like I'm still like getting excited watching it on my couch, but I've become numb a little bit to the
I hear
losses
you.
because it's just different. And when you talk about it every day, I was just like, I don't want to talk about another loss. I'm
I
what
did
else am I
not.
going to say at this point? It's like, especially if they would have lost this game after being up by so many, like, I don't know. I probably would have just been like, guys, I don't know what to say. But
Yeah,
I thought
I
that
would have.
I thought Boston, honestly, like the biggest thing to me with the Pacers, right? They put Kata in, Boston did. And Kata at one point when the game was tied, he was a plus 21. So it ends up probably being like a plus 18 for Boston, which means they outscored Indiana by 18 points when he was in the game. He changed the game in the fourth quarter because he's a little bit more mobile and athletic. And I felt like this is
Got
a
lane.
game where you felt the athleticism just really paying off. You're like, Cornette's a massive dude, and like Obi Toppin was completely oversized by him. But you kind of had you had to play the cards that were dealt to you because you got no Turner, Wiseman's out, Jackson's fouled out of the game. Your other backup center is, Obi Toppin, Enrique Freeman, who's smaller than Toppin. So, and Toppin had a pretty awesome game in this one too,
Did.
some big buckets. But I just thought that the Pacers kind of got like us. They got a little bit relaxed in that fourth quarter, thought the game was won. You can't ever sleep on the giant that is the Boston Celtics. So hopefully the Pacers learn from this. Like, hey, when we've got to lead in the fourth quarter, we got to keep our foot on the gas. We can't take it off a little bit. I noticed there's a lot of sloppy play during that time. Mathurin was trying to create a little bit too much one-on-one in that fourth quarter. You could tell that
Yeah,
the minutes that he was playing, he probably wasn't used to. So probably a little bit fatigued out there. He
probably.
had a great reverse in overtime. So I'm not going to discredit
That
what
was
he did
really
there.
nice.
Big basket, right? But like you could just tell, like a little turnovers, a little sloppy there in the fourth quarter. But it wasn't just him; it was the whole team. I think they just kind of got a little complacent. But you learn from that. You get the big dub, and yeah, I mean, I just felt like the effort was there all night. It was a different energy. The best game clearly we've seen all season. Not a lot to take from here, but just a complete game. And I felt like this team had their backs against the wall and they performed.
They did. They came out with a sense of urgency early on. Like we saw the Pacers, like they had the lead, in the first quarter. They put up what was it? It was 35 points in the first quarter. I thought that was great. They followed up with 32 in the second, 33 in the third, and then we obviously know that the fourth quarter was, very sluggish. And when we saw Boston make that comeback, I just looked. I said, that's a championship team right there. That's a team that didn't matter what the deficit was. They dug deep, stuck together, and they found a way. When you talk about the Mathurin like turnovers towards the end like that, that Neesmith inbounds pass was just like horrific when it got stolen, and then there was another span where the Pacers gave up two offensive rebounds, and then Peyton Pritchard gets it, he gets fouled, he goes to the line. It was like everything was adding up. Like there was also you and I talked about it offline, but it was like Ben Shepherd when he's trying to get possession of it. There's like three guys swarming all over him. Carlisle's like trying to call timeout. He's on the court like freaking out, and it's a jump ball situation. And I just felt like it was like, what is it gonna take to put this team away? And it's those little things like the jump ball. Indiana wins that possession. Like that's huge. And we always talked about Siakam. It's like Indiana had to dig deep. And to me, I don't care if you won this game by one or you went by 20. It meant something to everybody. The fan base, the players. You can build off this. You can come off this and say, wow, we just beat Boston Celtics. Why can't we beat the Pelicans? Like, why can't we beat a 76ers team without their two best players? Like, you can literally say, all right, guys, we have what it takes. There's nothing broken. We just need to dig a little bit deeper. And tonight, we saw the Pacers break out a shovel, and they started digging, and they dug deep.
It was good to see them kind of remind themselves of just how special they can be as a team, right? And I think that's what was good about this victory. But I think if moving forward, the Pacers can't be like, we beat Boston, we can beat anybody. They need to just approach every game like we're the Pacers, we can win this game, right? Like I'm not trying to discredit what you said, but you can't be
No,
like, oh, we beat the best team in the league, we can beat anybody. Well, if you have that
last
mentality,
24 hours. 24
yeah,
hours,
I'm
and
just
you got
saying, with that mentality, you have to have a mentality of like, let's go play our basketball every single night, right? You're not going to be perfect out of the 82 game season, right? We know that this is not a perfect league. Not even the Celtics can be perfect, and they're one of the best teams in the league, right? But they can be pretty bad for 2.5 quarters and still almost find a way to win, right? So the Pacers just kind of have to dig deep. I love what Jason Tatum said in the huddle when they had that mic'd up.
Yeah,
Basically just said, we're the best team in the league. We've been here before. Let's take care of business. The Pacers have not been there before. I mean, they're still kind of learning who they are as a team, right? So I think against the Pelicans, they got to come out with the same mentality they came out with tonight against Boston. Mm-hmm. And they have to say, you know what? This is a New Orleans team that's kind of up and down. They've been hit or miss for the last couple of years. Like, they've got some really good talent, but like still haven't hit their stride. Like, you can't approach it as like, well, we got this game. We just beat Boston. No, you got to approach it as we desperately need a win. We're 1-3, right? You gotta approach it like you're a team that's desperate for a victory. And I think that's going to help. But I do want to get back to this game because Tyrese Haliburton, very streaky night from the field, right? Had some big buckets, also had some tough baskets, right? Didn't love the decision to go to him in isolation against Derek White to end the fourth quarter. Would have loved to have seen a little bit of two-man action there with him and Siakam or whoever was guarding Keita. Like, he could have blown by Keita potentially, made a layup. Like, I just wish they would have done something besides isolation there. This is my old man corner, right? I did not like when he gave Peyton Pritchard the too small, when he gave the Pacers a 3-point lead before Tatum came down and hit the big three to tie the game up. So, it's just, I get guys like to taunt a little bit and have fun with it, but like, let's pump the brakes when you just get outscored 11-0 and you finally make a basket after like 2.5 minutes. Like, just know the situation a little bit, but that's part of his youth. So anyway, old man corner, I just thought Haliburton played a good game, ended up getting double digits assists, and they're double for Tyrese, looking like himself again, passing the ball. But, just slowly working his way back, and hopefully he can kind of shake off some of the rust.
A couple things on that. One, when Tyrese did the too small thing, like, to be honest, I think that's part of a reason why people around the league are starting to dislike Tyrese, because he showboats a little bit, and then it's like the game's not over. Indiana could have lost that game. But I also feel like he needed to showboat a little bit because he's struggling so much from the field that when he hits one, it's like he's, feeling good. Like we saw when he hit the big shot against, Detroit, and he started dancing a little bit. It's like, okay, I get it. But, he's struggling from the field. And he had a big shot that I mentioned earlier in the fourth quarter, and he's hit big shots thus far this season, but the consistency has not been there. I mean, at halftime, he was 1 of 7 from the field. He made a shot like just before halftime. Then you go on. It's like he continues to settle for too many threes, too many 3-pointers. It's pretty much like half of his shots are coming from 3, and he's not hitting them at a high clip right now. And that's the problem. Like right now, Anthony Edwards is shooting over 50% of his shots from 3, but he's shooting over 40% from 3. I feel like Tyrese Haliburton has just flat out struggled from the field, and it's been tough. But you mentioned it. The assist tonight was great. I mean, through, like I said a couple episodes ago, through 3 games, he had 11 assists. We're seeing back-to-back now games where he's having 10 assists or more in just a game, and that is far more Tyrese Haliburton basketball, the 10 assists to 1 turnover type of game. Like, that is why we label him the best passer in the NBA. You could see the 17 points, and that's great. But 7 of 19 shooting, 2 of 10 from 3. Ugh. It's kind of gross. I just know that he has yet to play. 12 assists he ended it, so I just want to give a little stat correction. But in the end, he's yet to play his best game, which still encourages me. If the Pacers can right now, be all right and be 2-3, and Tyrese has been far from himself, that gives me hope.
What did Jaylen Brown shoot from 3 tonight, Facci?
Jaylen Brown shot 1 of 11 from 3, so things could always be worse.
Yeah, so, sometimes you just don't have your shot, and I think Caitlin Cooper brought up a great point. She said Tyrese just looks a little stiff still.
Yeah.
Is it an injury? Who knows, right? I mean, I heard Rick Carlisle talk on the radio saying that Tyrese just had a very busy offseason.
That's one way to put it.
And we just found out that he's going to be in the new Netflix series.
I didn't like it. I know I'm sounding like an old man. When I saw that, I rolled my eyes and went, oh my God. Of course I'm going to watch. But like at the same point, it's like, this guy's everywhere. He's everywhere now. Like, take a moment, sit on the couch, take another nap, like whatever you got to do.
Well, I don't think we want to have him take any more naps, right? He's kind of done with those. But long story short, like I'll be excited to see that episode or that series when it comes out, right? Like just kind of following him along for this NBA season. But I think that he just kind of like is trying to balance, handling the stardom, all the attention and all the extra stuff with also trying to lead a team. I think he's very capable of doing it. I think he's just in a learning process right now. And you're like, a lot of people are like, you should have got more onto Tyrese for what he did against the Magic in the fourth quarter. He was non-existent, only 3 points, blah, 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 blah. But if you go through and look at Caitlin Cooper's, long thread that she did of how they were defending him, I mean, Jalen Suggs is like literally picking him up at half court
And Suggs
and
is
denying
really
the basketball the entirety of the shot clock. So that's where other guys have to step up. And, like if Haliburton's being taken out of the game by one of the best defenders, now it's a 4-on-4, you got to score without him. So, I mean, Tyrese is not a Jason Tatum-like player. He's not Anthony Edwards. He's not this big, bulky guy that's going to shake his defender off and do that. No, he's a scrawny guy that uses his IQ to try and outsmart the defender. And a lot of times when I see some of the shot selections that he makes, I'm just like, that's not what I love. Yeah. But I would go back and say, that's just not who Tyrese is. And he's still trying to learn how to become that scorer, right? Because he's more of a passer that'll score on occasion, where sometimes it feels like he has to be the guy and he's paid like he's the guy. So I just feel like when he doesn't have that same body build, like a Boncaro even, right? Like it's just that much more difficult to get buckets off with tough defense because, he doesn't have the extra upper body strength that other guys have. So I think Tyrese is in a good spot. I don't care about the Netflix show like you do. I don't like the too small, but I think that he's slowly starting to pick it up. And I felt like the Kendrick Perkins comments were very unfair tonight.
Two things. One, the Netflix show was just announced at a bad time. If Tyrese was balling out, then it's like, that's awesome. And when it was announced, it was like the Pacers are 1-3. He's struggling. The Kendrick Perkins comments were ridiculous. One, Kendrick Perkins is not the brightest guy. All right. He's like, oh, he got paid. And now that's okay. Perk, do you realize he got paid before last year? And then he balled out. So he didn't just get the bag. He got the bag like well over a year ago. So at this point, I don't even know, whatever, 15 plus months ago. So completely wrong on that. And it's easy to make those comments when the Pacers are struggling now, but like he's gonna return back to form at some point. I don't think we're gonna hear anything from Perk. I don't think that Perk watches the Pacers at all, just like the majority of ESPN. And I think they just look at the box score. And in the end, if Tyrese Haliburton's having 12 assists to 1 turnover, that's very much helping this team. If he's drawing in 2 defenders, that's very much helping this team. I think we overall got spoiled seeing him average 24 points per game for a portion of last year. I really don't think that is kind of like who he is right now. Could he get back to that at some point? Yeah. But there might be a scenario where Tyrese is averaging 18 to 20 and 10 to 12 assists, and we're very happy with it because he does have help now. Pascal Siakam's here. He didn't have that before when he was putting up, 24 points per game. So I think at this point, look, like we'll trade stats for wins, and he's gonna get back to his form eventually. But for right now, if you're gonna struggle, like I said, maybe an episode or two ago, this is the time to struggle. And I think get this out of the way, figure out these defenses. You're gonna have film on it. You got to figure out how to beat some of these double teams. You got to figure out how to beat a guy picking you up right at half court, because we saw the Knicks do that to him as well, and he very much struggled with that.
Yeah, I think, you talk about Kendrick Perkins, right? Like, I call him Hot Take Perk because all he does is just say ridiculous stuff to get a viral clip on social media, and it's not like basketball analysis.
ESPN is now.
Yeah, and it didn't have to be, because there was a guy they had over there by the name of Zach Lowe, who I have his notifications on now that he's no longer working with ESPN because I want to hear his thoughts. And here he is basically saying, like, I watched Pacers Pistons on opening night, like, because I was curious to see what the Pistons look like. And then he talked about the game in Orlando. And yeah, he was giving a lot of praise to Paolo and Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black, because rightfully so, they deserved it for the way they played in that game. But he also said at the end of one of his tweets, he's like, the Haliburton eruption is coming. So, I'm going to trust somebody that actually watches basketball versus somebody that just wants to get a hot take off and be on First Take with Stephen A, because they know that you'll say anything stupid that doesn't even make basketball sense. So, there's people over there that do watch it, like JJ Redick clearly watched it when he was at ESPN. Tim Legler, terrific basketball mind over there. And, I know there's other people over there that I'm not mentioning that do have good basketball takes, but Perkins is one of the worst ones out there, and they just gave him a new contract, and it's because he comes up with hot takes and things like that.
Mhm.
But one thing I don't think we've really dove into enough for this recap, and I know we got to kind of wrap things up here shortly, but Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah Jackson got the start tonight at the 5, fouled out, but my God, I just absolutely loved the energy that he played with. This team looked like a completely different team with Ijax out there, and it could just be the potential, like this specific matchup against Boston, but I really liked what I saw.
So did I. I mean, this guy, he's just always plays physical. Heart and hustle is always evident when Isaiah Jackson's out there. I feel like he makes every single minute count, and his stats are never going to blow you away. I mean, 10 points, 5 boards, but he 2 blocks, 2 steals. I mean, it's just well-rounded. He knows what his job is. 6 fouls. We saw in the past he might use up 6 fouls in, like, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes. Hey, he played 25 minutes, and I felt like he gave the Pacers really good minutes when he was in. Finished as a +8, and like you said, he fouled out, but he gave them everything he had on a night where my biggest question is, what is Indiana going to do from a big standpoint with no Turner? And it's just kind of interesting to beat Boston without Turner and without Nembhard. You kind of wonder, like, wait, what? Like, how did this even happen? But in the end, we saw the Pacers play just a little bit different. At times, we've asked for Myles to be more physical. You never have to worry about that with Isaiah Jackson. He plays physical. He's always competing for, going to snatch rebounds instead of rebounds just waiting to come to him.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in our show notes that I had before we went to overtime. A little question, and I said, "Are the Pacers better with Isaiah Jackson at the starting 5 than Myles Turner?" And that was going to be my question. I'll go ahead and answer that, and I'm not going to say that they are. I think it's a one-game sample size. You can't say that. But I will say this, the reason why you really can't say that is just because Isaiah Jackson is so foul prone
Of
that
course.
you can't trust him enough. But I do think that they could potentially limit Myles' minutes and play him closer to 27, 28 and give Ijax the rest of it, because I just think that Isaiah Jackson brings them something that they don't necessarily have. And I like being a little bit faster and more athletic, because I feel like at times Turner can kind of slow them down and can kind of be sluggish, right? And we've talked about Turner as a rebounder. Like, he just isn't that guy. But with Jackson, he's just so active and bouncy that you just kind of like that change of pace, I guess you could say, at that position. So it's not that Turner's a bad player. Turner had some great moments in the playoffs and really proved why he is worthy of that starting spot and why he is one of the longest tenured guys, and the longest tenured guy here, right? Like, why he's such a special center in the league. But at the same time, I think for specific matchups like this is where you can benefit from having different play styles, and you can go small with Obi and Ijax, right? You don't have to have a guy like Myles out there who is going to slow you down, and like, you can't switch as much, right? Like, even though Obi probably isn't as good of a on-ball defender as Ijax is, like, you feel more comfortable with him switching on to a Tatum or a Brown. Whereas if Turner gets in that spot, you're like, oh no, like, Turner's probably going to be in drop coverage and they're going to shoot right over him, or they're going to blow right by him because they're too quick and Turner's not fast enough to recover. Whereas Obi and Ijax are just, freak athletes. And I remember probably when Sabonis was still on this team, I heard people saying that Myles Turner was the like second most athletic player on this Pacers team. And I would say now he's probably like in the
Yeah,
like bottom
they've no
3.
Exactly. No, I agree with that. I mean, Indiana has gotten way more athletic over the last few years. Just those Pacer teams with Sabonis and Turner and all those guys are just so unathletic. But that's why we've talked about before. That's why can't even remember that guy's name. Cassius Stanley was, oh my God, what an athlete! It was like, because like we were starved for athletes at this time. It's like the 55th pick. But anyway, I feel like Isaiah Jackson's never going to be Myles Turner. We don't want him to even try and be Myles Turner. They bring some different things to the table. Ijax is always going to be way more physical. Myles is always going to be way more of a threat offensively. But they both bring great things to the table. I thought Obi, on a night like tonight, you saw him scoring, you saw him rebounding. I think in the first half, he had some really, really good moments. Obviously, eventually, with everything, we started to see some players get exposed a bit in that fourth quarter. But this was a game that the bench, I thought, just looked as advertised. Everything that we thought they could be before they returned to that form, significantly outplayed Boston's bench, obviously led by, Ben Mathurin. And this just to me felt like the first real time we saw Pacer basketball. And it was on a night where you're playing the defending champs without your starting center. You lose Andrew Nembhard. Indiana just dug deep. Funny story for you guys. Alex and I, a night or two ago, we did an episode. We did a preview for the Boston Celtics. And in there, Alex put me on the spot. He said, prediction for the game. And I said the Pacers would beat the Celtics. I said it. I stood by it. And then we both texted each other the next day and went, I'm just really not proud with yesterday's episode. We're like, I don't think we should put that out. And we just deleted that episode and we just didn't think it was up to par with what we want to bring you guys. So, hey, for the record, I want to just say Indiana needs this one. I think we're going to respond. I'm just happy that the boys did.
Yeah, you did call it, and I am sorry to say that did not make the cut of what I ended up putting out yesterday. We had a hot take corner and everything. We spent like 25 minutes after that Magic game doing another episode, and we both were just like, that was a really bad preview. And I think part of it was I was distracted with my mentions in Twitter, and I was replying a lot about Mathurin conversations. So I don't know. We did not feel very proud of what we did, and I think our prep work was not great. And then, of course, right, I record with Kevin Bowen around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, and then I go ahead and do a 5 to 6 minute preview of the game. And as I'm talking about it, I'm like, the matchup I'm really looking forward to seeing is how Myles Turner can take advantage of Al Horford. And
Awesome.
literally, I get it done, recorded, I post it, I get it scheduled, and I see on Twitter, Myles Turner is questionable with a knee injury or an ankle injury, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, you get the news today, Turner is out for the game. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I even had Turner in the graphic with Al Horford up there, and I was like, man, I felt pretty good about that because I just felt like if Horford's out there, they could spread the floor and kind of, I was like, if Myles can get like 23, 25 points, that'll help. I said, I think off the bench, it'd be great to see the Pacers have a good game. I think McConnell's going to have a good game because he didn't play a whole lot against Orlando, which I feel like that kind of played out, had a very good TJ McConnell-esque game. And I said, somebody that could pop is Bennedict Mathurin. I thought Ben could actually play well in this game just because of a bounce back, all the stuff that was happening with him, only 14 minutes against the Magic. And like big time Ben is a thing. Like for whatever reason, like when a game feels really big, Ben shows up. So
I agree with that.
yeah. So that's why, like when I said I would have loved to have seen Ben in the playoffs, like it might have been a difference maker against Boston, right? Especially when you had Haliburton go out with the injury. But overall, I think everybody, we could just relax. We can, walk to work tomorrow with a little pep in our step like Facci's doing right now.
I'm pepping the step tomorrow. I know I work from home, but trust me, I'm going to have the pep in the step when I walk into that kitchen. I'm going to be feeling good. I'm going to say, like, didn't they win by 20? And I'm like, well, actually, funny story, babe. Game went to overtime. We almost lost, but we won in the end. It doesn't matter. It's a W in the win column, and I just feel like that just makes you want to just listen to a little bit more Pacer content. Just see what people are saying about this team. See the highlights. Things like that is just like why being a fan of this team is so great. The highs are high. Trust me, the lows are lows. But when this team's playing well, not much is better.
Pacers are undefeated on Wednesday nights now, Facci, in the regular season, and undefeated when I wear my Pacers lucky socks still.
Ooh, oh, wow. We've had a good track record with those socks.
Yeah, I was getting ready this morning and I said, do I want to put these on? I don't usually wear them. I usually have like black or white socks that I wear every day, but I pulled them out. I said, you know what? I'm going to wear them. If they win tonight, I'm going to feel good about it. And then I'm tweeting about it. And of course, this is where people are like, if they lose this game, you cannot say one thing to Facci about the curse anymore.
I appreciated whoever chimed in with that tweet because I knew you were just gonna come for me if they lost, like as if I blew a 24.
I wasn't gonna come for you for this one. You weren't there.
You would though. Yeah, but still.
I was just thankful that they pulled it out so I can continue to blame games when they lose on you. The Facci curse is still a real thing. Okay.
Yeah, there it is. There's the spin. But look, hey, in the end, you know what? I love this team. I'm never gonna stop rooting for them. So if I'm gonna catch some random blame, just know win, loss, whatever it is, I'm gonna be right by their side. But it feels good to get another W in that win column. Not quite 500, 2-3, but at the same point, I think that the Pacers have a little bit of momentum now. I couldn't even imagine what that locker room would have been like if they blew this. I think that's when they would really start to be, questioning themselves, like, what is wrong with us? I'm just happy right now that they could just get back to themselves, have a little bit of fun.
Absolutely. It's great to see this team get back in their winning ways, and hopefully they can use this momentum to continue and play well on their road trip. They have New Orleans and Dallas before they are back home, I believe, next Wednesday for another game. So that'll be big there. But we'll have Chris Denari on the podcast tomorrow. Facci will not be able to join us because he'll be doing dad duties, trick-or-treating with his little girl and his wife. So, hey, my boy's not here yet, so I'm sure that those days will be ahead for me too, where I'll have to skip out on some pods. But Chris Denari will be joining us from his hotel room in New Orleans. So we will have a great conversation with CD, and I always appreciate when he comes on and we can kind of talk about this game again, talk about what we saw the first 5 games of the season. It'll be great to kind of just do like a week recap with CD. But Facci, the Pacers get the big dub. It's a big one, 135-132, improved to 2-3, snapped the losing streak, and things are better. So if you're happy the Pacers took down the champs without Myles Turner and without Andrew Nembhard, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.